Now, to turn to the last chapter, chapter 12, on heresy and schism, it starts seeming just to lay down a few definitions, although it ends, if you look at the last paragraph on page 27, it ends with Locke's advice as an English Christian to other English Christians, how to avoid being a heretic or a schismatic, that is to say, how to avoid blame for your religious opinions. So, starts in a neutral way, but ends giving positive advice. But in order to get anywhere with this chapter, we'd better know what the basic words mean. So, heresy is perhaps familiar. In religion, we talk of people being orthodox, and that's if they believe the correct things, at least correct and consistent with the general trend of the religion and consistent with authority in that religion. And the opposite of being orthodox, having the right opinions, is to be a heretic, to somehow make a mistake or have an error or be willfully wrong, to think the wrong things. And then schism has to do with dividing a religion into parts. It's the simplest meaning. If different parts of one religion can't get along, they disagree to the point where the whole religion breaks up into two different religions, two different parts, then that's a schism. And anybody who does that or pushes for that or does things that tend to lead to that outcome is then schismatic. So that would be, from a certain point of view, but from the point of view of people who take religion seriously, to call somebody a heretic is an insult. You're telling them they don't believe the truth. And to call somebody a schismatic would be a great insult. You're telling them that they're somehow outside the right beliefs to the point where they threaten the integrity and health of the whole religion. Now, Locke begins, as I say, simply with definitions, and one could expect a certain neutral definition according to the logic of his argument. He says many times, everyone is orthodox to his or herself, and therefore one could extend that logic that other people are heretics to oneself. And that would be a kind of neutral logic of toleration. And no one can make an absolute claim to have the one right opinion. And therefore we all call ourselves orthodox. And people who disagree with us, we call them heretics. But that no one would deserve the term heretic, and then no one would be safe from being called that. It's all a matter of perspective and relativity. That is a possibility that Locke does not take. That's not Locke's opinion, but we can see that it fits with the logic. So we might be expecting that, particularly on the first page of this final chapter. But it isn't what we get. And so we should follow the actual argument to see what Locke tells us, because he uses this 12th chapter in a way that makes sense for a final chapter to give advice to his main audience, how to behave in order to do things properly. But then we need to think where that argument comes from, how it can make sense in a text whose main point is that there's no such thing as a general proper belief in religion, that we all, by the essence of the thing, disagree. So how do we get to what's a standard conclusion, what's a normal conclusion for most books, but how did we get to that standard conclusion in this book, which has a different logic because of its tolerance, because of its topic about toleration, which seems to mean you can't give any neutral advice. You can't lay down a rule about what's good and what's bad. And yet, how does Locke manage to do it? How does he conclude in that way? Let's look at the definitions. I'm here on page 26, the start of chapter 12, and the definitions are clear enough here at the start of the chapter. That heresy and schism are words that apply to people who share the same religion. That if you are outside the religion, then those words don't apply to you, because both heresy and schism have to do with a difference of opinion on a ground of a more basic agreement. So you can be an infidel as somebody who just doesn't have the faith, somebody who doesn't share the religion at all. So, a Buddhist to someone of the Greek pagan religion, those are both infidels to each other, because one doesn't believe in Buddha and the other doesn't believe in Zeus. You can also be an apostate. If you've left the religion, if you've renounced it and taken up a different one. But these are fundamental disagreements across the broadest distinctions between religions. Heretics and schismatics are not people who have that situation, but those are always terms that apply to people who share the same basic religion. So here on the last page, I'm on page 27 of chapter 12, he turns his focus to the distinction between Protestants and Catholics. He's aware that there are many religions, and within each religion many different parts, but he ends by considering the chief distinction in the Europe of his day. And still there are two main religions. There are Protestant Christians and Catholic Christians. And the split between these and the power struggle for worldly authority between them is the cause of endless trouble, wars and civil wars. And it seems to be a big impetus for writing this book. The thing that made him want to do it and pushed him toward it was perhaps to bring some kind of peace between those two main parties, so that life would not be too upset, too bothered by opinions. There will always be wars over the problems in nature, the scarcity of goods, but human beings tend to make extra problems over their religious differences, and that he's trying to create a logical framework under which everybody could seek peace. So here at the end, he turns this discussion of heresy and schism to this main division between Protestants and Catholics. And he points to a simple version of the main difference between them, that for Protestants, the authority in religion is only Scripture. And while people have authority within the religion, that they work within the religion, they publish their opinions, that these are not permanent decisions, but that each new Protestant starts from the beginning with just the authority of the Scripture and tries to figure out for him or herself what that means. The Catholics take the opposite view, that the church can come to decisions and find new revelations, or make collective determinations about what the religion means. So in the simplest possible way, Catholics have a pope who's the first in authority, who can lay down new decisions for the religion that have binding authority for everyone who joins that religion. And Protestants do not have such an authority with such power. Having mentioned that distinction, he focuses in on the Protestant belief that Scripture has the complete authority. And his final advice is simple and follows from this: that you cannot be a schismatic, you cannot be a heretic, if your authority is Scripture and you do not overinterpret it, you do not push it into areas of doubt, and then make your doubtful decisions binding on the religion. You do not try to make them the cause of schism. You may argue, you may try to persuade people of your beliefs. That's natural to religion, natural to sharing your religion to others. But so long as you concentrate on what everyone can agree on because it's so obvious, and let the others be endless matters of dispute, but never something that would get somebody called a heretic, or never the cause of schism, then you are in the right as a Christian. So there is an attractive logic that would fit with some of this treatise, which Locke does not use, and that we might confuse for his actual argument. And the attractive logic would just be neutral. Everybody is orthodox to him or herself, as Locke says, and everybody is a heretic to other people. And so there's no such thing as a heretic, because there's no such thing as somebody being orthodox. And that's not Locke's logic, but if it would fit with at least some parts of his treatise, and it would be tolerant, and it would deny him the opportunity to conclude by giving advice to the people who share his own religion, the people from his country. But Locke does not follow that logic to that final extreme, and he does conclude by giving advice to the people who share his religion and live in his own country. And it's fairly simple. You can see it here in this last paragraph of the treatise, that no matter how small your faction is, even if the whole rest of your religion is denouncing you and calling you a heretic, and even if those people say you are a schismatic for insisting on your beliefs, and therefore making it impossible for the different parts of the church to get along, if you founded your beliefs on what's obvious in Scripture, and you do not push beyond that into making something that is merely doubtful, an interpretation of Scripture that could be argued over, you do not make those doubtful interpretations a cause of schism, or you do not exclude other people on the basis of those interpretations, then you cannot be called justly a heretic, and you cannot be called a schismatic. Those things that are traditionally terrible names will not apply to you, no matter how small your faction is within the religion, how isolated you are, and no matter how many people get angry at you. You will not deserve those names, so long as you keep your religion on those principles. And that is his positive advice. And with that, he has created a logical structure that people can accept in order to live peaceably with others, despite differences of opinion on religion. And I think if we judge that from the point of history, we say that his success was imperfect, but great and important.